Welcome back, everybody, to Wealth Webinar. Today, we're going to talk about something that I think is just so absolutely important for all of you, not just for you, but for your family and for your family's financial future. Because listen, what we're going to go over, we're going to talk about the circle of money. We're going to talk about the circle of wealth, and we're going to talk about how right now, this moment might be the single greatest opportunity for every single person who takes the opportunity to get ahead. To get ahead financially. I don't think it's ever been easier than it is right now. And I'm going to explain exactly why, but I'm also going to explain why the wealthy use the infinite banking concept and privatized banking in their strategies. That's the most important thing. But you know, the cool thing is it's pouring rain out here. This morning and last night we had thunderstorms. You know, it could be hailing, sleeting. We could have a blizzard, a snowstorm, a tornado, a hurricane. And guess what? We still do this show because we're committed, right? The world right now is a bit sideways. So I know when I sit there and I tell you that right now might be the single greatest time in history to get ahead, you're probably thinking, no way. You got a war in Iran. You got oil prices all over the place. You got the markets ping-ponging up and down. How could this be the single greatest opportunity in my life to get ahead? Well, let me dive in. But the things, the headwinds that you're looking at and the stuff that you're focused on, and I've got some of these written down. So if I look down, I'm just kind of looking at some of my notes because it's really important to get this right. Prices are up on everything right now. So it's harder to get ahead financially, right? How about this? The news. The news is all over the place. It's chaos every single day. It's very hard to find positive news in any of the news channels anymore. So it's just we're being trained to just see negativity day in and day out if we plug into that. Not only that, you're probably pulled in 100 directions. The kids, work, your career, everything else. This webinar pulled you away from something. And, you know, we got about almost 100 people coming on here, you know, so you got pulled away from something. But here's the thing. Here's the truth. The world does not decide your opportunities. Only you do. Not only that, your habits are single-handedly one of the most important things that will control where you go in the future and what your finances look like in the future. Changing habits is really hard. Some people say to create a true habit, it's 10,000 hours. Like a true mastery of something is 10,000 hours. Habits you can develop in, so they say, 30 days of doing something consistently and persistently. And I will tell you that these are the choices that we get to make. Nobody makes these decisions for us. We decide what opportunities we embark on. We decide what habits we choose to partake in or learn. And one of the other things that really comes into play with that is your willingness to change, your willingness to do something new, and your willingness to believe that your life can be better in the future. These are all things that really play into your success path. Because no matter what I can tell you, Stephen can tell you, Craig can tell you, we can't change your habits. We can't change your mindset. We can't change your willingness. But the good news is all of you are on here, which means all of you are ready to change something. You're willing to learn. You're willing to invest your time. You didn't have to pay to be here, but the best thing is you did pay, and you are paying because your time is the single most valuable resource you have. So because you're giving us your time, I know you're serious about that, which is why I want to take this so serious that I literally have 8 pages of notes to train you on today. That's how serious I take this training. But here's the thing. When we think about the wealthy, now I know most of us can't connect with what the wealthy do, but the one thing you can connect with is you can look at the wealthy's habits. Okay, you can look at their willingness to change, and you can look at their actions that they do, and it's sometimes hard to see exactly what they're doing, but it's not hard to actually go back and research it, which we've done. And when you look at the wealthy, they understand one thing: control. They understand that control of their finances, control of their habits, their willingness, and their money are all very, very high on the priority list. And it needs to be high on yours. The other thing that they understand is that money in motion is money that's working for you. Now, our whole lives, we've been taught to not put our money in motion. We've been taught to take our hard-earned money, just get some bucks over here. We've been taught to take our hard-earned dollars, and we've been taught to work for these, trade hours for these. When we get our hard-earned money, we have been taught to put it into the bank. Now, there's the checking account and the savings account. We'll call the savings account a high yield savings. We've been taught to put our money there. The checking account pays the bills, right? So you put the money in the checking, that pays bills. And for some people, it feels like every dollar that goes in the checking account at the end of the month, it's like a black hole. There's nothing left. So what we try to do is we try to pay ourselves first, which is the first law of wealth. And we try to move some of our income, some of that money in the checking into an account where that money can sit and be saved. Now, I want to give you some bad news. No one, I mean no one, has ever saved their way to true wealth. You cannot save your way to wealth because parking money somewhere, leaving it sit, i.e. 401ks, i.e. savings accounts, high yield savings, money markets, CDs, what you're doing is you're playing into the system because your money stops working for you. It might be working for you at a rate of 4, maybe 5% that you're earning, but it isn't moving. There is not a wealthy individual, not a wealthy company out there that is not having their money in constant states of motion. Your money always has to be moving. This is an absolute fact. But the other important thing you need to understand is that you need to really focus on redirecting the money that's leaving your family. We need to redirect that money back. I find people, and Craig and Stephen talk to people all the time. We find that people are very, very active in trying to save money. They're active in trying to invest money. And they do this, but when we get behind the curtain or under the hood, if you will, we find that people are earning good money, and I'm sure all of you are earning good money. Okay, sure, you might want to make more, but you're all making good money. Okay, then what you're doing is you're diverting some of that for your retirement into the 401k. And I got no issue with that. Just don't put much over the match unless it's major tax planning, done by your CPA. The second thing people are doing is they're putting money in all sorts of other investments, trying to get ahead. They're taking risk by investing money. And just so you all know, investing always involves some level of risk. So they're investing money. But here's what we see. When we get down to, they're always fast to talk about, folks are normally really fast to talk about the investing. They want to talk about the investments and the returns that they've gotten in the past and their 401k returns. And then when we flip it and we say, okay, well, what does your debt look like? Then it kind of gets to be a somber mood. Well, we got a credit card here, we got a Visa and Amex, and we got this and we got that, and the list just keeps going. And what we find is a lot of folks have a bunch of debts that they're making monthly payments on. Some of those debts are related to their investing because they've taken money as a loan, we'll call it a home equity line of credit, and they've then invested that money to make a spread. No issue with that. But what I'm trying to explain is we often miss the single greatest wealth building tool, and that is to take and turn your debts and expenses into wealth. And the only way to do that is how the wealthy have done it and how very successful people have done this is redirect the dollars that you're paying to somebody else's bank back to your bank, back to yourself. And it's very simple. Go through and just do a little T-chart, write down all your debts, write down the balance of the debt, write down how much you're paying every month and what the interest rate is on that debt. When you get all those written down, add them both up, add up all the interest rates, okay, whatever it is, 60 or whatever percent, because you added them all up, divide that by the number of debts you had. So if you had 5 debts, and the number was 60, you divide 5 into the 60, and that will give you your average interest rate on all your debts. And I want you to think about that really long and hard, because that interest rate, that average, that is money you are giving away every month. Then the cash flow piece is the payment you're making. So when you make that payment on those debts, remember, I'm trying to get you to focus on the rate, the interest rate, but also focus on the cash flow. What is that number? Is it 1,000? 1,500, 2,000, 4,000, 5,000, 8,000? How much are you giving away every single month in payments to your debts? Then what is the interest rate you're giving away? And is that interest rate that you're giving away greater than the interest potential on your investments? In most people's scenarios, the answer is it is. So wouldn't it make more sense to take no risk with investing, to just focus all of your energy and effort on a system, on a process that would allow you to recapture the money you're giving away on the debts and expenses you have? See, this is just simple, common thinking. It's redirecting the flow of your money back to you. Now, this doesn't happen overnight. We can make it happen really fast with the vault, which we'll get into today. Craig's got some amazing stuff put together to show you, but it doesn't happen as fast as most people want. But I will then urge you to look at your investments. How long has it taken your investments to really make a sizable impact in your wealth? A long time. Warren Buffett talks about it. You got to invest for a long time. When you invest in something, it's usually not an overnight success. Sometimes maybe, but you take on a lot of risk trying to chase fast returns. And usually, and sometimes those risks are way, way greater than you should be taking for the reward that you're going to get. So when we talk about all these things, these are real life designs that each of you can do that will help you build your wealth. And I'm going to show you that in the circle of wealth and how that works. But let me talk about the real problem. Let me talk about what most people want. This is kind of a problem to me. Most people want to work less. Okay. They want to make more money, rightfully so. They want less stress in their life, and they want to have their money figure itself out. Okay. Without any effort. They just want their money to figure itself out. This is what people want. Now, the laws of money are no different than gravity. You cannot go to the top of a building, go to the top of this studio right here, stand up there, look at the edge, jump in this, and then just tell gravity, no gravity today. You're not going to do that today. No, you're going to hit the ground. And, here you probably wouldn't die, but it's going to hurt. Okay. Hope you know how to tuck and roll. So what I'm trying to say is you can't change the laws. Okay. The laws of gravity cannot change, and the laws of money and the laws of wealth cannot be changed. You need to conform to within those laws, and then things start to get easier. And that's really what I want to talk about. And here are some of the universal laws of money. They reward movement. So if your money is not moving, you are violating a law. Second thing, they reward stewardship. And lastly, they reward engagement. Okay. You have to be engaged. You have to be a good steward of your own money, which means not putting your money in someone else's control in most cases. You need to be a good steward of your money, which means you can't just be giving money away on all these debts. You need to be a good steward to redirect that money back to you. That's the premise of all of this. And that's why I'm saying it's so easy right now to get ahead financially if you just know how. And that's what I want to get through to you. But also, I want to add a second component to that. It is so easy, probably the easiest ever in my 48 years on earth to get ahead, because we literally have set the bar so low. We've set the bar so low. And if you don't believe me, call any bank, call any financial institution. Tell me how many clicks did it take if, and only if, you could even get to a human being that could solve your problem. Then when you get to a human being and you tell them your problem, how many times did they push you off to another department? Interesting, right? How many of you have tried that? How many of you have called a bank? You have a specific need. I don't care if it's a bank, an airline, whatever institution you want to call. You call, you have a specific need. You get somebody on the phone, finally, after clicking, and waiting, and they answer. And you start to get into it. Oh, thank gosh, you answered. It was only been 15 minutes. Not bad. And you tell them your problem. Oh, well, you got the wrong department. And they move you to the next department. And then that department. Oh, you should have talked to somebody. Whoa, don't. And they connect you to the next one. And this goes on and on. Am I the only one that has to go through this? Am I the only one that's seen this? I think all of you have, right? Every single one of you have probably dealt with this, because there is a major problem in service. And this is the easiest barrier you can overcome. Just do a little bit more than what everybody else is doing. But let's get back into this. Right now, more people than ever are disengaged. Okay. They are not engaged. I don't know if it's because of information overload. I don't know if it's just they're overwhelmed and stressed out. They are completely disengaged. We see this a lot. A lot of people, especially when it comes to investments, are passive. They don't want to deal with it. They don't want to deal with investing their money. They don't even know what they have invested their money in within their 401k. Most people have no clue. They might be able to tell you what the percentages they're putting in, but they probably don't even know what it's being invested in. When you ask them, well, why don't you know? And how did you pick these? Oh, that's what they told me to do. Or even in today's world, you don't even need to tell anyone what to do. It just defaults you into one of those freedom date or target date retirement funds. And those funds have the highest fees. So what's the risk trade-off? Well, you want to be passive. You didn't want to deal with it, so you're going to pay more. And you can go to the sec.gov and you can look up the hidden fees on mutual funds and how much it will cost you over the period of time. We've done videos on this. And not only that, so many people today want to do the absolute bare minimum. Now, I know this isn't any of you on here. We got over 100 people now. You're not looking to do the bare minimum. You wouldn't be here if you were, but there's a lot of people that do every single day, that go through every single day where they're trying to do the absolute bare minimum. You probably work with these people. You see it. They come in, they get their job done, but they don't do anything extra. Nothing extra. So I want to take this as an opportunity for me to tell you a story. And I feel this story is really important. It's my story, but I think it basically will set the stage for where we're going to go with the next thing. So it's going to be back in 2002, okay, right after the dot-com crash. I owned businesses, skateboard, snowboard shops, and during the dot-com, my businesses got crushed so badly that literally I did not have enough money to make my $199 a month. I had a Chevy ZR2 S10. I couldn't make the lease payments. So I knew something had to change. I could either let my businesses fail, or I could go out and do something that I told myself I would never do again. I vowed I would never work for anybody again. And here I am on my knees during the midst of a recession, the aftermath of a recession, wondering how I'm going to make it to the next day. Can any of you relate? Like, we've all had those hard moments. So I did what all of you would do. On one page, because that's all it fit on, I had one piece of paper. My resume fit on one piece of paper. Community college, self-employed. That was it. I had nothing else. Good snowboarder, but they didn't care about that. I put my resume out everywhere. Little Caesars wouldn't even hire me for delivering pizzas because I thought that would be a thing. I'll just deliver pizzas at night, and that'll make my car payment and this. They weren't hiring. But you know who was hiring? Wall Street. Unique. Like, I was this punk snowboard kid, owned skateboard, snowboard shops, and now all of a sudden, the only place that responds back to me are Wall Street firms. I got 2 interviews. One, I drove all the way out to Rochester. I'll never forget it. I didn't have a suit. I was so nervous about this interview. What the hell do I know about stocks, bonds, investing? Nothing at all. I think I had invested $500 in mutual funds with this guy named Dan, and that was the most I've ever invested in my life outside of my own business. So my grandma, she's no longer with us, but she took me to this place called Lurch Daly, got me a suit, got me a zip-up black tie, because I couldn't tie a tie, and off I went to Rochester for this first interview. I feel like I bombed the interview, but guess what? I got hired. And while I was starting there was things that materially were wrong. If you ever watched the movie Boiler Room, it felt a lot like that, even though I hadn't seen that movie yet. So I took a second interview with another firm that was closer here because I didn't feel like driving to Rochester every day. And I ended up taking the job at the firm here in Buffalo. Now, that was the beginning of a 16-year stint as a financial advisor. Okay. Very much was it outside of my element. Very much was it outside of my comfort zone. Putting the suit on, I felt like a clown. I literally felt like a clown. So much so that I couldn't get over the fact that I had to wear a suit every day because it was so foreign and against what I was used to that I had to go to my snowboard companies that I dealt with my shops, and there was one, Volcom. They made suits for their athletes, but only their athletes got them. But I weaseled my way in to get a black, a gray, and a navy blue suit from Volcom. And I wore those suits with pride. It connected me back to my core. And that's how I got through that one. But you see what I'm saying? Sometimes you got to do things that are against what your thought process is. I had built habits of wearing hoodies and beanies every day to my office, which was my store. Now I'm wearing suits every single day. Sometimes you just got to make little adjustments, baby steps to get where you are. But anyway, let me get into the midst of this. So when you start in Wall Street or in the financial advisory world, you basically are pond scum. You've heard about this. I don't know that Wolf of Wall Street, but it's very real. You are in the middle in the cubicles. They treat you like complete shit. All the glass cubicle office around the outside are all the top producers, and they want nothing to do with you unless you're serving them, which I watched this. I was a pretty good observer because I wanted to make money. I didn't even have enough money. Here's how they would all work. Let me tell you what I saw. Okay. And some of you might relate to this at your place of business. I saw the top producers. They would get there around 8:30 in the morning. Okay. They would do whatever they do until lunch. At lunch, it was a ghost town. They all left. They all went to lunch. They often would invite me, and I couldn't go to lunch. I couldn't afford to go to lunch. I had to bring food. I actually would pick mulberries from the mulberry tree, put it in Tupperware, and that was my lunch. So I got used to working through lunch. And I found something really unique is when nobody was working during lunch making calls, I made calls and people answered the phone because that's what we did. The pond scum, the bullpen, we just had to dial for dollars. That was it. Pick the phone up and call. Create your project 200, pick the phone up and call. And that's what I did. I didn't have a choice. This is just how it goes. Like, so, hey, that's what I'm going to do. And I watched these high producers show up 8:30, 8:45, leave for 2 hours for lunch. And then 4:30 comes in the afternoon. They are out the door at the latest by 5 p.m. So here's what I did. I watched these top producers and I knew they all made, in six-figure range. I don't know, low to high six figures. One day I realized something, and it literally changed my life forever. I still use this to today. I realized that success belongs to people who are willing to do what everybody else is unwilling to do. So let's just sum this up. This is a simple formula for success. If everybody else in your profession is showing up at 8:30, show up at 7, because you have no competition. Show up at 7, get all that paperwork done. If everybody in your organization that's successful is leaving for lunch for 2 hours, work through lunch, pound the phone during the 2 hours, get the work done during the 2 hours. And then here was the most important thing I witnessed. At 4:35, when they went off to be with their families, and listen, I didn't have a family at that time. It was just lonely old me and my kitty cat. I think I had a couple cats, not as many as today. But anyway, at that point, what I did is when I made appointments during lunch, when I wasn't dialing for dollars for the high producers, because what we would do is we would dial for dollars, and then we would connect those people to the producers that we were associated with. They got paid the big money, we got the pond scum money. But I found, because we were allowed to, if we made our own appointments, those were ours. That's what I started focusing on. Now I had to hit my quota for the handoffs, if you will, the referrals that I would get and patch over. But you see, I started building my own book, and I would go out and see these people after 4:30. When everybody else was home with their families, I'm out there at kitchen tables. Because you know what? The average person works 9 to 5, call it, okay? So they were free before 9, so that was easy to get a hold of them from that 7 to 9. They were free during lunch because they were on lunch break. And then after work, that's when I could go see them at their kitchen table. And that's exactly what I did. And it sucked, but I did it. I did it every single day. I got really good at it. And you know what it did to me? It made me number 3 in that office in a very short period of time. In 2 years as an advisor, I climbed the ranks in this firm to be number 3. Now, why was I not number 1? Some of you would be asking. Well, number 1 was a guy named Mark, okay, who I eventually later partnered with, who was just crushing it. He did work a lot, okay? And then number 2 was his business partner, who had been in the business for like 30-some years, just had a book. Those were number 1 and number 2, and I was number 3, and I was psyched about that. But what I'm trying to explain is I wasn't any smarter than anybody else. Matter of fact, I didn't have the knowledge that they did. They probably knew more than I did. But the one thing I did is I was willing to do what all of them were unwilling to do, what they refused to do. And that's how I did that. And I have been doing this for, I don't know now, 22 years. It's how I built this. We committed to doing these webinars. We committed to showing up every single week at 1 p.m. Do we miss it? No, like I said earlier, doesn't matter. We never, ever miss this. So as we kind of get into this, the thing I'm trying to say is that money, all the money that you want, all the money you need, all the money to paint your perfect day picture, it all exists in the extra mile. It doesn't exist in the 9 to 5. It exists in the extra effort, the extra mile you're going to put in. It's always empty. There is so little competition. Read the book. I think it's called The Red Ocean or The Blue Ocean. I think it's called The Blue Ocean. Great book. The Blue Ocean versus the Red Ocean. Everybody's in the Red Ocean. That's why the blood's in the water. But in the Blue Ocean, which is that extra mile, that extra stuff that you don't want to do, that nobody's willing to do, that's where you find the success. And also that's where you find the knowledge. So listen, I already mentioned this. None of you paid anything to be here, but you paid the ultimate price, which is your time. And I very much appreciate that. But I need to ask you one tiny question and one tiny commitment. I need to ask how many of you are willing to commit to taking one action today? All right, so let's keep going. Money. And I'm going to come over here to the board now. I've made this association many times. But I think it's the greatest analogy I can give you. Money is no different than a raging river, okay? I want you to think about a river. How does a river happen, right? It originates at some large body of water, typically the ocean. And then that river starts at the ocean, flows down. Off that river becomes streams and creeks and all these different things. But let's just focus on that main river. And for every one of you, no matter where you live, you have a river in your area. And I want you to think about that river. It's always flowing, isn't it? It's never stagnant. It's always moving. And in certain parts of that river, where it narrows out and you can see the other side, it gets pretty aggressively violent, right? The power in there. We have the Niagara River here. And I know when you go over the Peace Bridge, and from the Peace Bridge, it's right where Lake Erie creates the Niagara River, and then it goes all the way to Lake Ontario. That water, the current there is fierce. It is. But it's always moving. This is exactly how money is. So this river that I drew behind me, this is money every day in your life. You might not be able to see this because you can't really see the current in a lot of rivers, but it's there. And if you jumped in or waddled your way into the water, you would feel the current, but you couldn't see it. The naked eye could not see that movement. It's the same for money. Money is everywhere. It is moving around you every single day of your life. It is, and especially in this digital world, I mean, my gosh, you just have to think about it this way. Money is flowing. Money is changing hands. So this is where I really like getting into this, because if it's happening everywhere with Zelle, Venmo, all these digital exchange, now X, X is going to have some, Elon's coming up with a digital thing, then we have to assume that money behaves a lot like water. And it starts at an ocean, but the ocean is refilled by rain. So I tried demonstrating the little raindrops here. I didn't do a great job, but rain fills the oceans, which fills the lakes, which creates more flow in the rivers. Right now, it's pouring rain out. I could drive to any creek, river, and it's going to be flowing at a higher velocity than it was before. But that rain doesn't happen unless you have evaporation of the water, which then creates the clouds, which creates the rain. I know this is kind of silly, but I promise you this all will make sense in a second. If the money is circulating, if the money is flowing, then who is controlling the flow of that water? Now, in all of your towns, I'm sure you have the same thing we do here. We have power plants here. In Niagara Falls, there's a giant power plant. And you know what the power plant does? It redirects the flow of that moving river. And it redirects it to turn turbines. And then those turbines create energy. Those turbines create power. That power costs money. People pay to have that energy and that power. The more energy need there is out there, the more that they can charge, supply and demand. So I want you to think about that. All they did is they figured a way to divert the water. Now, here's the problem. And I'm going to use this river example as the one. The majority of the people that you will ever come across are these people here. This raging river that I drew a picture of here, it is freezing cold. Let's call it 50 degrees. It is flowing at a pretty good velocity. It's a bit scary to look at it. But there are some people like this little joker here that will dip their toe in and be like, oh my God, that's cold. And they will go nowhere near the water. And then this person, when they said, "Burr," this guy's like, no way, it's that cold. This one's like, nope. This person's sitting over here hiding behind the rock because the flow is scaring them. This person over here says, nope, it's cold. Way too powerful. Not today. Too cold. And they run away from it. They move on. They go back to what they were doing. But there is always one person who over here is this person who knows the laws of wealth and knows that rewards are given to movement, stewardship, and engagement. So this person, okay, and I'm just going to kind of do this with you. This person goes over, touches their foot in the water. And boy, is it cold. And he's like, oh God, that's cold. You've all been there, right? Cold pool. Most of you didn't get in. But how does it work with cold water? Once you put your foot in, right? You kind of got the feel, the shock's gone. But then eventually, when you actually get in the water, okay, which is what I'm going to try to show you here, doesn't the water start to feel kind of normal? After a little bit, the sting kind of dissipates. Maybe your body goes into shock, who knows, but you start to get used to it. We've all done that. I've jumped into freezing cold lakes to swim, and at first your body seizes. It literally, like you just almost feel like you can't move. But then you know you got to move to get warm, and you start going, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, this isn't so bad. And then you just keep swimming. You just keep playing in the water. And you're like, this isn't bad. What was everybody complaining about? It's because you got through the hardest part, which was that first shock. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Because now that you're in the water, now that this person that I drew here is in the water, okay, they have a huge competitive advantage because now they're disrupting the flow of this water. You see, when you walk in, you start feeling the current on the water. Just imagine yourself going into a stream or a creek that's moving, right? At the edge, you don't feel it. But the deeper you get up into your waist, okay, now everything kind of feels normal. You're not cold anymore. You can kind of still feel it, but it's like, oh, this is okay. And all of a sudden now you start feeling that flow hitting you. And then I know all of you have probably done this. You do it outside the windows of your car. You take your hands and you stick it in the water and you kind of feel that. And you kind of move your hands and you realize you can redirect the flow. You can kind of take two hands, you can direct it more around you this way. You can create a V in front of you. And so you see what I'm saying? I'm going deep into this. I'm trying to get you to understand money is no different. You have to go through the hard part, which is that first foot, that first, up to your knees, that first up to your waist. That's hard. And that means you eliminate most of the people. Just like when I talked about the office and the Wall Street thing, that was really hard to want to come in earlier than everybody else, stay through lunch. Felt like I should be out having lunch with them, shooting the shit, learning, whatever. But no, I didn't. And then staying after and going out and doing the hard work and seeing people day in and day out, driving 2 hours to appointments. That was all hard, but I was disrupting the flow. And eventually, when you learn about disrupting the flow, you know what you do? I'm going to try to draw this and see if I can kind of have some fun with this. Eventually, what you will do is you will realize, wow, I can disrupt the flow of this water. So once you start to learn that, you start to understand, I'm going to kind of do some Bob Ross shit here. You got this and you realize that you can just put this water mill right here. Okay, it took some effort to build this, took some money to build this water mill. But you know what? Now what you've done is you now have created a perpetual flywheel, and this water mill will continue to keep turning as long as the flow of water keeps flowing. But the flow of water always happens. The flow of money always happens. And eventually, all your needs are met because you created this flywheel that keeps moving because the velocity and the flow of the water keeps turning the wheel. And eventually what happens is all your needs are met. Great. You could go off and you can live the life the way you want because you figured out how to disrupt the flow of money. But you know what? Some people are going to say, you know what? Since I figured out a way to disrupt the flow, to create energy and power, I'm going to try to find a way to kind of store some of that. I'm going to store some of that and I'm going to sell that off to other people because I got to believe other people have the same problem I had. But there's a lot of people, all of these people, who did not have the courage to go in and figure this out themselves. So now those people will pay a premium for this. You now start solving other people's problems because your problem has been solved. But you see, that's backwards. That's completely backwards. For all of you listening to this, I will tell you the single most important thing is not solving your problem. You're all here because you got one problem or another. You want to make more money. You want to get out of debt. You want to learn something. You want to learn about infinite banking. But if all you ever do is just try to solve your problems, you will never get where you want to be. There has to come a point where you start taking more energy and more focus and putting it to solving other people's problems, because the ultimate law is if you solve somebody else's problem, you won't have any. Your problems will automatically be solved. I could prove that every which way, but the moment you start influencing the flow of money, you will start to realize how simple this game gets. And the other thing too, and I already said this, the flow of money is very simple to interrupt because right now the bar is so freaking low. The bar is so low. I said this earlier, but I'll say it again. One of the things, we just had a big meeting. We do it once a month with our team. And everybody's worried about AI replacing their jobs. I keep talking about AI integration into our workflows and this big investment that I'm making into technology and AI. And everybody's like, oh my God, it's going to replace my job. And I said to them, AI will never replace human relationships. AI, in my opinion, and I think it's a good one, will never replace human relationships. So why is it that what we spend our time doing in business is finding ways to remove human relationship? We find all these ways to automate everything, all these ways to take the human relationship out and replace it with AI because it's more cost effective. It's more efficient. When people call, you don't know what they're calling about. So you have AI answer the phone or a recording and hit this button, hit that button, hit 2 for this, and you always go to the wrong person. What if, or actually, I'm not going to say what if, I know right now if you were to call Security Mutual, I'm just going to pick on Security Mutual, one of the giant mutually owned insurance companies we work with, a human being will answer. And you'll literally be shocked. Okay, you might have to hit one button, like what you want, but a human being answers, whoa, I got somebody on the phone. Oh, and you're almost shocked. You don't even know what to say because you're so used to waiting. But then all of a sudden you get them on the phone, you tell them what you want, and all of a sudden they know how to solve your problem. Like, oh shit, they actually know what I'm talking about. Like they're not going to patch me over to some other division. Like, you mean you can do this for me right now? Oh, sure. You want a loan? Yeah. What bank account would you like it sent to? Great. Oh my God. And you hang up the phone. How do you feel when you get a company or an individual that can solve your problem right there, and you didn't have to jump through a million hoops to talk to a computer or a machine learning type of a device? You feel pretty good, do you not? So why is it that all of us are not just out there trying to find a way to get back to that? Back in the 50s, in the 60s, that's all there was. You always talked to a human being. You always had a relationship. Always. We've gotten away from that. We've allowed technology, which is so amazing because technology can free up all the busy work we have and free us up to do just the things that matter, which is solve the problems for the people that we work with. Human relationships. I got to believe. I mean, listen, all of you here, are you not seeking more relationship? Are you not seeking more service in your life? Are you not seeking more human relationships that solve your problems? Or maybe some of you just want to use computers to solve all your problems, which then you get hallucinations, you get led down the wrong path, you make bad decisions, and you don't have that human relationship. Now, I've got to believe there's a couple of you on here that want to just deal with machines, but I do not. And I think most of you definitely do not want to do that. So, disrupting the flow. I want to talk about something else. Now, we talked about disrupting the wheel and everything else, but I want to kind of go into one other thing because this is a simple thing. You get a paycheck or you have income, which I could write just paycheck or income. That paycheck or income goes into a bank account. Okay, let's call this a bank. Then some of that goes to a 401k or some type of retirement. Some of that goes to savings, whatever capacity, investing, all these different things. Okay, and then that's where the buck stops in most cases. Okay, this is the flow of how it works. But see, here's the problem. This money that goes into this bank account that goes over here, 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 one thing that is certain is the second your money leaves this bank account, it stops earning, right? But oh, it's okay because the money's going from my bank account to my retirement account, so it's going to earn over here. But now we added an element of risk. So risk versus reward, or risk return profile is what you could say. Same thing here, risk. And then it goes into savings, but then savings today, you might be getting 4% on your money. Did that backwards. You might be getting 4% on your money today, but as soon as the Fed drops rates, this goes down. But all I'm trying to say is all the common places where money goes, your money is trapped. It is just sitting there. It is not moving. It is literally just sitting hostage to whatever vehicle it goes into. And then from there, it's going to earn what it's going to earn. It's going to have risk. It's going to have all those things. But what if you could just change one thing? What if all you had to do is change where the money went first and put it into your own banking system? I'm just going to write BYOB. Same dollars, same monies, but now instead of all of your money going into the private bank, we're only going to take the money that would normally go to savings, investments, other things that you need. Could be college planning, a car fund, a Christmas fund, that money. So over here, we redirect the money that we save. Okay. When it goes in here into this private bank, it's guaranteed an interest rate that never changes. You get dividends. So let's just call that 6% with dividends and interest. And that 6%, I'm going to show you something before we're done today. That 6% dividend crediting rate grows tax-free. But now here's what changes. When we eliminate their bank and we replace it with our bank, there is a way where the money can go into this bank and earn a better return, have more benefits for your family, give you tax-free growth. But now we could still do the same thing. We just connect the dots differently. So it goes from your bank to investments, from your bank to the things that you want to buy, like cars and houses and real estate and a second home and all these different things. And it goes over there. But now all the money that you normally would have given away to their bank has a way to come back. But there's something else that happens. You can recapture and recycle all the money that you're giving away back to your banking system and control it all. Because every payment you make on a car payment comes back dollar for dollar, and can be used the next day inside your policy. Sure, when you take the money out, you are taking it as a loan, but it doesn't matter because that loan typically would be at a lower percentage than what you're actually earning. That's the goal. Because what you're earning, if this was $50,000 in your private bank and you took 50 grand to buy a car, okay, the 50 grand didn't leave your account. It's still in your account. It's still in your cash value, and it's still earning a dividend crediting rate tax-free. But if you did that from a bank account, the money leaves the bank account, it stops earning. You did not continue earning on your money. Now, I want to show this real quick, and I want to show this in a couple different ways. So, Craig, actually, let me give you the ability to share. Can you pull up those illustrations that I gave you or that you created for me, and just pull up the one where it's sorry, I got to put my glasses on. The numbers are so small. It's like 26,000 the first year, the dump in with the 6,000. There's some interesting things here because now we're going to go into the infinite banking concept, and we're going to talk about how changing one thing, the one thing rule, which is where your money goes first and how that can benefit you. And I just want to give you some raw numbers here. Okay. We're just going to pull the numbers right off of an illustration that Craig put together. And it's so simple, right? Everybody wants simple. So this disruption is simple because it just changes one thing, and that is where your savings goes first. That's the simplistic part about this. Now, because you're just changing one thing, and that one change is you're not depositing it in their bank. You're depositing it into a specially designed and engineered whole life insurance policy like the one we're looking at here. This is one of the carriers, Lafayette Life, that we use. And we use many. And we never just tell you, hey, there's only one carrier that's going to work for you. We look at many scenarios. We design a whole bunch of scenarios, and we have you pick which one you think works. But then with the vault, we can literally just show you the mathematics on which one will work best. But what I want to focus on here is just a couple quick things, just so you all understand why this makes sense. Because the second I tell you what it is, especially designed and engineered whole life, it's an eerie, icky feeling, right? This is outside the norm. This is that part where you stick your foot in the water and it's freezing cold to get that shock, and you're like, shit, no. You've heard enough stuff about whole life. Dave Ramsey does a great job of telling everybody whole life is the worst place you can put your money. But how about if we just let math prove that? Let's kind of push Dave Ramsey's opinions off to the side, and let's just look at the mathematics. Now, I know for one fact, or I know a fact is this is not going to be enticing to all of you. Craig, is there a way to make that any bigger? Maybe go to yeah, there we go. All right, so this is just a basic example. So we did this on a male, 48 years old. So we're showing the age of 49 because we're looking a year down. This person put 20, they had 20 grand, okay? And listen, replace the number with whatever you want. You don't even have to put a dump in, deposit in to make this work. I just had to start somewhere. So this person had 20 grand in a bank account, and they were making 0.005 on their, like 0.5% on their savings. So they're like, hey, listen, if this company is going to pay me 5.9% gross, dividend crediting rate, that's better than I'm getting in the bank, and tax-free, sure, that sounds great. So they dumped 20 grand in there, like you can see. Now, each year, they want to continue to save, but they wanted flexibility, okay? So that flexibility is that they didn't want to save 20 grand every year. They just wanted to save 6,265. Now, I know that's a weird number, but what we did here is we just said, what is the lowest amount we can put in to support a $20,000 dump in one time? So $6,265 per year, which works out to be a smidgen over $500 a month that you're saving. All right. Now, what I want to do here is I want to explain the bad. I want to talk about the Dave Ramsey bad. Why should you not put your money in a whole life insurance policy? Craig, can you scroll over a little bit? Right there, the first year, I put $26,265 in this stupid whole life policy. That was how much my premium deposit was. And in the first year, I lost 8.3%. 8.3% is gone. Where'd that money go, Chris? Well, in all fairness, some of it went to me. It went to me for my effort and energy and my team's effort and energy for building this. So on this policy design, I would say probably you take your premium, and we probably got, I don't know, the PUA is going to throw this way off, but probably 90% less than the average whole life policy would pay. But we got paid some of that 8.3, that $2,189 that you lost in that first year. Sure, the insurance company got the rest of it because the insurance company gave you day one a $340 $45,385 death benefit. So if you die, it gives you a death benefit. So the insurance company certainly charges for that. These are not non-profit insurance companies, okay? These are for-profit. That's how they can pay dividends. So out of the $2,189, what'd you get? Well, I guess you get me, okay? Because we helped set this whole thing up, my team, all the support we're going to give you, the I team, the application team, the servicing, all of that. You get all of that, okay? But we did get paid some of that $2,189. The insurance company got paid some of that for the cost of insurance, and the greedy insurance company had the audacity to charge you, if I'm not mistaken, Lafayette, a $50 annual service fee, policy service fee. That's right, to mail you all those statements and give you everything, they charge you $50. So yeah, that's the downside. And some of you that's just not okay, because you know you can put $2,600 or $26,265 in the bank, and tomorrow you can go take $26,265. Where here you put $26,265, you can only take $24,000. I get it. I get it. If that's not okay by you, this isn't for you. Perfect. You can still learn from us. You just don't. This isn't just not going to be your vehicle. But for the rest of you that are like, well, I don't know, what do I get for that? All right, let's go to the second year. So in the second year, we continue making the savings. We continue changing where our savings goes, and we put $6,265. Now, in the second year, if we scroll over, there's a couple things. Our dividend went up. See how our dividend went to $12.72? So we're making more in dividend because we have more money in the account that is compounding. Now, I'm going to come back to that in a second, but now your cash value is $30,487. Now, if we look at this for how much you put in total, you still are down 6.3%. But if you needed to take money out this year, one of the cool things is the $6,265 that you deposited will now be worth $6,411. So now, dollar for dollar, how we look at a lot of our investments. I know many of you have investment accounts, and you look at your investments this way. You look at it year over year. Okay, if I put $1,000 more into my investment account, how much did that 1,000 earn me at the end of the year? This is how we look at things. It's called cash on cash return. Our cash on cash return here in the second year is positive. It's only 2.3%. I get it. That's not a lot. But again, the insurance company, we're not getting paid a commission in the second year. We got it up front. But the insurance company now has a $355,000, 423 death benefit if you die. There's a cost for that. Okay, so we made 2.3%, nothing to write home about. But let's just keep going. You see, every single year, there's something that is guaranteed to happen. Every single year when you make your deposits, you will have more money than you did the year before. Miracle. You don't need to worry about what's going on in the world. You don't have to worry if the U.S. and Israel are bombing Iran or Iran is bombing us. You don't have to worry about any of that. It's nice and calm in here. It's nice and quiet in here. Okay, it's chaotic out there. But you see, in here, it's quiet because this is guaranteed. So as you can see, your dividend's now $1,500. You now are only 4% cumulative behind the 8 ball. So literally, like when we really think about that, Craig, how much does that mean that they would have paid after the third year total? So what does 4% work out to be they would have paid? Is that it? 400? No.
Well, the net gain is 496, but
Yeah, you
you know
made 496 net.
they put 38 in, have 37
Yeah, that's what I was
248.
looking for. So right
Yeah.
there, you put 38,795 in the third year. That's your total amount you put in. You have $37,248, but you have $365,000 in death benefit. Let's just do this math here real quick. Because this, listen, Dave Ramsey always say buy term, invest the difference. So, he says buy term because it's cheap. Well, let's see. 38,795 minus how much did you have in the third year? $37,248. So in 3 years, to have $345,000 in death benefit, it has cost you $515.66. Now, that's what we do, folks. We're happy to take a call with all of you. Look at your situation, design some plans using the vault to show you how we could solve your problem. And then at the end, we're never going to ask you for your business. You can say, hey, yes, I like this. How do we go forward? How do we start? Okay, we're not going to ask you for your business because right here, this is the math that shows that. $515.66. 3 years after you started this stupid whole life policy that your brother-in-law, your sister-in-law, the Primerica rep, Everybody told you this is the dumbest thing you could ever do. But I urge you, like for a 49-year-old to buy $345,000 of the cheapest term insurance you can get, I would almost guarantee you, and you are all willing, you go on ChatGPT and check, it's a commodity. I bet you can't find one for $515, but that's just 3 years in. See, now 3 years in, we've got almost all of our money back that we've put in. We've been protected. We've had full liquidity of this money, at least almost full liquidity. By the third year, you're down, what, $1,000, we'll call it, a little more than $1,000. You're down, but you've been able to use all of that cash value anytime you needed it. So that's what we teach. I'm just showing you the stupid whole life here. I'm not even getting into the infinite banking, but just realize you had liquidity of this money. Anything that in that cash value column he's showing you right there, you have full liquidity of that money. But you see, here's another unique thing. Let's just kind of look. We put $6,265 in the third year. How much did that $6,265 earn that year? Well, it would have been right there. You made $6,761. Okay. Your cumulative return, total all in, is -4%, but your positive cash on cash return on that new money is 7.9%. So now in the third year, good luck. Can you find a bank that can give you roughly 7.9% on your money? No way. No way. Wouldn't happen. Okay. But not only that, that's 7.9% tax free. So what would be the tax equivalent yield of that? I did some math earlier today, and I'll get to it in a little bit, but like tax equivalent yield, there we go. Let's just do that. 7.9. Because remember, the whole life policy, if built properly, is tax-free growth on the cash value. So in order to have, if you had $100,000 taxable income, which would mean your federal tax rate's 22%, you don't live in the shitty state called California or New York where there's huge state taxes. You live in Stevens' really nice Florida place. You'd have to make 10.128% in your investments, in your high yield savings, in your CD to equivalent back to making 7.9%. Please, please, please tell me where actually, I got to correct myself. Unless you're connected with Dave Ramsey and you're plugging into his magic 12% mutual fund, I don't know any other place, and I don't think that place exists either, where you can make 10.128% with very little to no risk. I don't think it can happen. But let's go back to that illustration really quick, because I don't want to beat this to death, but I do want to explain, like, this is starting to sound pretty compelling, isn't it? But see, it just keeps getting better because every year you have something called compounding interest that's kicking in, and every single year it gets to be more. The next year, it's not 7.9% anymore, it's 13.8. The year after that, it's 20%. This is where people start to say, that sounds too good to be true. Really? Okay, well, you can call it too good to be true, but this is just the math. This is not us making up numbers. This is not hypothetical. This is just what it is. The only variant here is if the company changes the dividend, but I could show you a 30-year history of dividends, and they've only changed like, I don't know, what, 1% up or down? Maybe 2% up or down in 30 years? Like, they hardly change. So that is pretty probable that that's exactly what you're going to have 5 years out. Matter of fact, you might even have more. Any of our clients that have had policies with us for 5 years, guess what? They have more money than what we showed them because dividends have gone up. Not just once, not twice, like 3, 4 times. But the other unique thing here is now we're in the 5th year. Now I know it took 5 freaking years. 5 years. But in the 5th year, something miraculous happens. You put $51,325 in the policy. You have $51,926 in total cash value, which means now, as the late R. Nelson Nash would say, how much did that insurance cost you? Nothing. You got $387,233 in death benefit. And how much did it cost you? Well, you could argue in those first 5 years there was a cost, and there still is a cost, but the compounding nature of the interest that you're accumulating is far greater now than what the costs are. So now you're on the other side of it. It took you 5 years. But you didn't lose liquidity in those 5 years. Okay. I know there's some people that we talk to that are like, nope, I would never do one of those whole lives because I don't have all my money to use in the first year. I'm like, you wouldn't be a good client of ours anyway, because you're that person that puts money in your savings account. And at the end of the year, there's no money left. You literally are working from a zero-sum game. You're never going to get ahead because you got the bad habits and you got the bad money management. You don't know how money works and you don't want to learn. So you're not our client. Perfect. But for some of you and most of you on here today, how do you argue that? How do you not look at that and say, well, that actually makes a hell of a lot of sense. But let's go one step further. just one step further. I want to preface that this policy design is specially designed and engineered to do this. A normal whole life would not do that. Working with us, we're going to design your policy to maximize your high early cash value and your returns, just like we did here. But if you go to your normal Northwestern mutual agent, they're not going to know how to do this. This is incredibly specialized. I'm not making that up. Try to have your Northwestern or your insurance guy or gal do one of these. Try to have them do a high early cash value policy. Oh, and God forbid they try to show you an IUL. Well, that's a whole nother day and another topic. But now let's go back up to the beginning and talk about the disruption of the flow, right? What disrupts the flow of your wealth? Let's just go back to that first drawing that I did. What disrupts the flow of your wealth? Debt. Okay, debt stands in the way of the flow because now what happens is a big beaver comes in here to your river, and right where you built your factory with your flywheel that was making all that power, a beaver builds a dam right here. And you don't got nothing against the beaver. Beaver's got nothing against you. It's just doing its thing. And what the beaver did is the beaver successfully rerouted all the flow of the water around your water wheel, which means your production just went down. You see, this is life. That flowing river that you disrupted is great until something outside affects it. And what is that? That is your debts. So go back to those numbers, Craig. Now let's just kind of play a scenario. This is where the rubber really meets the road. And I know I'm going long here on this, but this is so vital and important. Go to year one. Year one, you put $26,265 in there. You have $24,000 that we can use. Let's just assume, and Craig, I don't know if you could show this. Let's just assume that we wanted to take this $24,076 and we wanted to use this to get out of debt or start getting out of debt. What we could do is we could take a loan from the insurance company. And when you take a loan from the insurance company is loaning you part of your death benefits. You had a $340-some thousand death benefit. The insurance company is loaning you part of your death benefit from their general account. They will collateralize that using your cash value. And now, here's the coolest part. The full cash value that I just told you is still earning that interest rate and that dividend, okay? In this company is 5.9%. It's still earning that. The growth remains exactly the same, exactly the same. But now what we're doing is we're paying off debt using that money because we did not interrupt the opportunity of your money earning. So now you didn't disrupt the flow. So the beaver, all you did is you went and had a discussion with the beaver and you said, hey, beaver, I need you to go move that. I don't want that in my way. So they do. So you've just removed the beaver from the flow of money because now your money is still earning for you while you come over here and you pay off debts. Now, given this scenario, Craig, can you just walk them through what this is?
Sure, absolutely. So what we're going to show now is just a sample debt profile. And this could be completely different for what you're doing, but let's say you have some credit cards, personal loans, medical debt, car loans. What we're showing inside of this debt blaster is a methodology for not only classifying your debts, but also understanding what's the most efficient order, and then using this exact same policy that we've gone over, how would that help us pay off these debts but build wealth at the same time? So let's just assume that this is your debt profile. These are your individual debts and balances. And so you have about $78,400 of debt. And on average, you're about 8.66 across all of those debts. And you're paying 1,265 every month towards those debts. That's money, using Chris's analogy, that's money going right down that stream that you're not participating in. It's just, heading out the door. Before I show the policy, I just want to kind of walk through the payoff strategy. So if you did absolutely nothing, if you just continued to pay those debts the same way most people do, it would take 181 months to pay off that $78,000 of debt. And on top of that $78,000 of debt, there's another $30,516 of total interest paid. So you have $108,000 heading out the door. That's what's gone. It's left your family, it's left your personal economy forever. So the first thing we do is we say, what if you were to just structure those debts into the most efficient order? I'm sure you've all heard of snowball, avalanche, cash flow index, but those are just ways of ordering the debts and identifying how you're going to pay those off. If you just did the avalanche, which is structure your debts by the highest interest rate to the lowest, you knock that 181 down to 80 months. And instead of paying 30,000 in interest, you paid 22,787. But let's just say that's all you did. Guess what? At the end of that 80 months, your debts are gone, your money's gone. You haven't built any wealth. Yes, your debt's gone, but what's going to happen the next time you have a medical emergency or you need to borrow money? It's probably going to come from swiping the credit card or taking a personal loan, right? So, what we talk about, let's use that same policy and let's apply the infinite banking concept to our debts. This is the same policy that Chris was just walking through, that $20,000 dump, 6,000 a year. Yes, we don't have full access to those dollars immediately, but let's see what it would do if we started funding that policy every quarter, taking the maximum loan out and just throwing that at the debts. So now when we go look at the payoff table, in 42 months, those debts are gone. Now we want to be an honest banker, but after those 42 months is up, for the next 37 months, we're going to take that same $1,265 that we were paying to Amex and the car dealership and the medical debts. We're just simply flipping the switch and writing that to the check of our own banking system for 37 months. However, we haven't, we're paying everything off in about 79 months, but what I want to show you is at the end of that 79 months, you have $61,000 built up in that policy. And Chris has already talked about as we get further in time, guess what keeps happening? We get more and more efficient. Our cash on cash improves. We've already beat our cumulative. We have the death benefit. So, all things being equal, would you rather just do the debt avalanche in 80 months, have your debts gone and no money in your pocket, or just run that money through the policy in about the same amount of time? Your debts are gone, your policy is repaid, and you have close to $60,000 of cash value that's going to continue building and compounding for the rest of your life, plus a death benefit of $410,000. So that's the benefit of what we teach. That's what we model out with the vault. I mean, if we're going to model this thing out and show that it's not going to work, we're going to show you that. But I rarely see a case where it doesn't work.
Yeah. But I mean, what you just demonstrated there is you just solved the person's problem, but they didn't lose the opportunity. We call it opportunity cost. They didn't
Mhm.
lose the compounding on the original money. They're making money on all of their money while they're using the money to pay down debts, which is then putting more money back in their pocket, putting them in a better place, which is why earlier I said the number one way to build wealth is through your own debts and expenses. There it is. That's exactly what we're talking about. You just built $61,311 in additional wealth and you paid your debts off. Like most people, Dave Ramsey in there, when they paid that off, guess where you're at? Zero. Paying debt
Yeah.
off is a zero-sum game. You always arrive back at zero when you paid that off. But here, you paid the debt off and you're not playing a zero-sum game because your money was able to continue working. Wow, you solved your problem.
Yeah, and we ended up paying the debts off somewhere between year 6 and 7. It was at 79 months. But I mean, look at the cash on cash at year 7, and this is just going to keep going. Then 54, then 62, then 70.
I
And
mean, that's incredible. I mean, you put 5,775 in and your money grows that year by 9,855. Please, someone tell me, where can you do that? Like, is there anywhere else on earth that you can do this? Because I don't know of any. But yet, this is the worst place you could put your money, says Dave Ramsey, Susie Orman, and so many other gurus. This is absolutely the worst place. You know who tells you that? People that are selling term insurance, people that are making money selling the other side. And I get it. We sell term insurance too, but it's not a preferred method. It's just a solution to a temporary term problem. But they sell it like it's a solution to forever. I get arguments all the time on this. Like, I love that Walter just said, what if I already have a whole life? That's the greatest thing ever. And actually, we call that fine wine. Think about wine. Wine, the older it is, the more expensive it is, and supposedly the better it tastes. Now, I've had old wine, and it does taste pretty damn good. Some of you are probably winos. So, Walter, I want you to think about an old whole life. Maybe your grandparents or your parents got you a whole life when you were a kid, and you got it, and you're like, you never even looked at it. That's like buying a house, and you're going through the basement, and you find this bottle that's covered in dust, and you pull it out, and I don't know fine wines, but you dust it off, and it's like a old bottle of wine from 1940. And it's like one of those brands that you really like. And then you go online, you Google it, and you're like, how much is this thing worth? And you're like, holy shit, it's worth that much money. That's what you've got. So your old whole life policy, don't ever let anyone convince you to get rid of that, because it is one of the most, I think, criminal things done out there. When we see old whole life policies get replaced, we'll never replace that. Don't even ask. We'll never replace it. Matter of fact, even if you have an IUL and surrender, chances are we're not going to recommend you replace it. Even though we hate those things, you lose too much money. But an old whole life policy, it's a Rothschild policy? No way. Are you serious? Is that real? I didn't even know Rothschild had policies. But that's phenomenal. That sucker must be old. But older policies typically grow faster because you've got all that momentum and all that compounding. The returns back in the day were higher. The guaranteed interest rate on those policies were higher than they are today. The non-forfeiture rate, which is the guaranteed interest rate on the policies, was 4% for, I don't even know, from 2022 back, as far back as I know, 4%. Now they're like 3, 3.75, 2, they all vary. So you got yourself a nice, oh, he's talking about, no, the wine. Yeah, you got an old Rothschild wine. Okay, I know Rothschilds like wine. And the other thing with old policies is you got all that compounding going on. You should be using them. We can plug them into the vault and use them for sure.
And Chris, I was kind of thinking through, because that older policy, there's probably some people sitting back saying, well, that wasn't specially designed, but I've had it for 15 or 20 years.
Doesn't matter.
And, I've got an example. We can just kind of show
You have my YouTube video of that one that I did, my old $389 one?
I don't have that one available, but I do have here's an all-base traditionally designed whole life policy.
But here, you can see the difference. This is what most advisors would sell, right? This is an all-base, off-the-shelf whole life. You can see you put 10,155 in, you got zero cash value in the first year, zero cash value in the second year. And then the third year, you put in 30,000, you got 5,000 back. That's the difference. And the difference, I hate to say this, but the base policies like these ones right here, they pay the highest commission. So the agent gets paid the most, but you get paid the least. So what we do is we flip that in the design. We design it for high early cash value, which means the money comes from our commission to you. We give our commission up to you. That's the biggest difference. But show them how efficient even old whole life policies are.
Yeah, so let's say by year 20 you've put in 200,000. I mean, you're past the cumulative point. So you're
Well, hold on. Let's compare that to a term policy. Let's say this person had bought a term policy. What was it at? 800. Wow. So let's just say, if I go with $1,200 for a term policy for this person at the age of 45, I think I'm way under doing this. But let's just say a term policy, a 20-year term costs $1,200 a year times 20 years. Now, if you're a betting person, you're going to bet that the insurance company is going to win this bet in 20 years. This 45-year-old statistically and actuarially will outlive this policy. Only less than 2% of them will ever pay out. So unless you're the lucky 2% club, like that dies, you're living past this term. So in that term policy over 20 years that Dave Ramsey suggested, because it's cheap and it was only $1,200, you ended up paying $24,000 over 20 years for that term, and then it expires. But if you did this whole life, yes, it's far more premium. Okay, you got to look at it like a savings vehicle. But how much money did you actually make during that? You made $18,000. Is that right?
Yeah, so that year, cash on cash, 10,155 goes in.
18,000.
18,293.
And start to finish, no, that's how much you made from cumulative premium to the cash value.
So your cumulative is 203 to 226.
Yeah, so, it's actually more. So in this scenario, yes, you had to lay more money out during those 20 years, but you got all your money back and you made 20 some thousand bucks. I don't know. Call me silly, and I just did that example, but I'd rather do this. I'd rather do this normal off-the-shelf whole life, get all my money back, have some extra money, have protection that lasts for the rest of my life. Because remember that term policy, I spent $24,000 in premium, but it was cheap. It was cheap. Oh, it was cheap. $1,200 a year. Man, I got a steal. Yeah. It's the most expensive life insurance you ever bought in your life because you didn't get anything for that $24,000 because you outlived it. Now your family is at risk beyond the 20th year. Oh, but I know the Primerica people would say, yeah, but you saved the difference. Show me case studies where actual clients over 20 years actually have all the money saved, like for the difference between the 10,000 and the 1,200. Show me one. You can't, you won't. There's probably very few that have ever done that. And that's the fault. Human emotions, human nature. Basically, the money that they save, the buy term, invest the difference. The invest the difference, usually they don't invest it. Usually they don't save it. They spend it. So in 20 years, their family's SOL. And if you don't know what that means, it means shit out of luck because you did some really, really stupid things and listened to some even stupider people. I don't mean to be rude, but like, come on. Like, this is the math. This is what you got to look at. This is an off-the-shelf whole life, nothing like the ones we designed. Craig, you put together another sheet, and I think we'd be remiss not to get into that. I don't want to run out of time. Do you want to walk people through those visuals? I did my little river thing, but I think what you've got put together is pretty compelling too. Just walk through it real quick.
Yeah, we can do that. And I see TC was just asking what's the difference between specially designed and the regular. So we just showed you the regular, exact same numbers going in. Remember there was zero, now it's 8410. Then it was zero, now it's 17. Then on year three, it was 5,400 somewhere in there, and it's 28. So that's the difference between standard off the shelf whole life versus specially designed is we're driving that cash value. So you can clearly see the same amount of premium going in and what's accessible here versus the traditional whole life, which was zero. And if we go down to year 20, the cash is a little different. I mean, we didn't fund the same way, but the biggest difference is you're going to see that high early cash value. And that's what the biggest difference is.
Love it.
All right. Yeah, I think Chris,
Fine wine, man. Fine wine.
yeah, and Chris, I think you talked about most of these things, but one of the things we were kind of talking about is let's say you're a business owner. You don't even have to be a business owner, but you might have some big sums of money coming up, maybe some inheritance or windfalls, or maybe you're selling a company. And a lot of the things we do in the specially designed whole life is we accommodate for that. So if we know there's going to be some potential windfalls coming, we can plan that in, but we also want to do it in a smart way. And so think about a business owner that has these ebbs and flows of revenue where, hey, sometimes we're doing really well, sometimes you go into economies where we're not doing so well. So how do we build a policy that accommodates that growth and that flexibility? And so those are some of the things that we think about. And I like to use the airplane analogy because when we think about, let's say you're going on a trip and you're going to fly, across the pond to go to some international trip, and you think it's such a fun trip that you want to book a seat for Chris, maybe you're going to take me and Steven along too, and maybe some cousins and neighbors. So you're going to buy all these seats on the plane, not knowing if we can actually make it on that trip with you. It's time to travel, and all of a sudden Chris is sick, I can't go, Steven can't go, your cousin can't go, your neighbor can't go. You just bought all these plane seats that you can't use, so you wasted that capacity. The same thing can happen when we're doing policy design is we can build a bunch of capacity, but if we're not going to use it, it may end up as waste. So we want to think about all those things when we talk about specially designed whole life is how much capacity do we want to build in? Does it come with extra cost? Can we do it? So we just want to sort all those things out. So here's what we do is we play with different dials. And I like to do what's called the maximum funding strategy. And I'm going to bounce back into the vault because we spent time, Chris went in detail over this policy design where we put in the $20,000 as well as the 500 plus a month. What if you wanted to build extra capacity and not be stuck to just the 62, 65 in say the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years? There are designs that we can do. We call them max funding. And in this particular one I'm going to show you, there's no extra cost. We just need to qualify for it. So what if we used that exact same policy design, but we continued putting in the 20,000 in year one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, maybe even into year eight. So think of it this way. We're building capacity where you have a minimum amount, and I'll show you what that is in a minute. You have a minimum amount, but you can go all the way up to 26. Wouldn't that be cool? That's a real banking system where if you had 500, great, do the 500. But if you had an extra 1,000, you have room to put it in there. So this is what we mean by building in some of that capacity. And you can go and look at the numbers and just see, if you do put more money in, of course, it's going to grow faster because we have more compounding and growing. But this is one of the ways we like to build in that flexibility for business owners or for people that think there's some windfalls coming. Now, after a certain point, depending on the design, we may make that policy premium drop way off, and there's some different dials and switches we can turn to keep this higher if you want to keep it higher for longer. But anyway, this is what we call the max funding strategy, and that's what we're kind of talking about here, is the ability to kind of play with some of the riders and some of the designs to be able to allow you to go from a very small minimum, but then when your business is doing well or you're doing well personally, you have extra room to stuff into the banking system.
I love that
Chris,
you covered
anything,
that.
yeah, anything you want to add on that? Because I think that's a really
No, I think
important
it's really
point.
important because a lot of people, when they commit to something like a savings program, they're always very nervous that, something's going to happen. My business isn't going to make as much. My job is going to get replaced by AI or something. And that's why it's so important to understand that when we design these policies, we don't tell you what the numbers are. I know here we're using fixed numbers just because we're, teaching this example, but we can design the policies to be anything you want, and we can design them to have as much flexibility as you want. So there are limits, because there's IRS limits for this, but we certainly can design a policy for somebody that, like, let's say somebody said, I want to have the ability to save $10,000 a year, but what if something goes wrong? We can have it so that your max, like your minimum is 2,500 a year. And I'm just making things up. It could probably even go less than that, but
Yeah.
we can build so much flexibility because we understand that the clients we're working with, the business owners we're working with, money comes in ebbs and flows. Sometimes you get a bunch coming in, like in business, and then all of a sudden you have some dry seasons in business where money's harder and you have more commitments. So we have to build flexibility into these policies. Otherwise, we would set our clients up, especially our business clients, up to fail. And that's why we don't have many people canceling their policies. We have a lot of people started at a certain amount, hit some hard times, need to reduce it, but then the good times come back and they make up for all the time when they reduced it. They literally do what's called a catch-up deposit, and they put all that extra money in, and now all that money's compounding, and they didn't lose a beat. Okay, maybe they lost a year or whatever it was in compounding on that extra, but they're able to put it back in. The capacity, as you saw, the wealth capacity is still there. I
Yeah,
think that's
and
really
just
important.
and I'm not going to get into all the ingredients, but just know, just like if you go to the baker, the local baker, and you wanted them to bake a cake for a wedding or a graduation, you're not going to tell them how much salt and how many eggs and how much flour. You just know you want a three-tiered cake and you want this kind of frosting and you want this, type of decoration. Similarly, we're going to get those type of inputs from you on how you want the money to flow. And in this particular design, now imagine you could go anywhere from this 2074, that's your minimum, or that's what you want to be able to get in every year just to keep the policy alive and healthy. So that's the minimum. And then we're showing up here, you can go from 2000 to 26,265. So you have that amount of flexibility in the policy to kind of figure out where you want that funding to be. So many of those are just some considerations we talk about in the design. And if we go back to Chris's picture of the river, hey, sometimes there's droughts, and I'm in Colorado. We've had a horrible winter with very little snow, so we're not going to have a lot of fast flowing streams and rivers this year. Probably going to have a lot of forest fires and different things like that to deal with because everything is so dry here. But Chris,
Yeah.
you guys been getting a lot of snow, and
Heck yeah,
so
man. It's pouring out. If it was snowing right now, this would be a blizzard. That's how hard it's raining here right now, but
yeah,
it's not. Unfortunately, it's just a heavy rainstorm. But yeah, we got plenty of water here, man. So do we need to redirect some of the water? I can get in there and flow it back over there to Colorado.
please do, please do. And I think the last
Might
time
take
you
a
and I
little while.
The last time you and I talked, I was driving in a blizzard, but that was like
Yep.
one of the first snows we've had in the whole season. And it happens to be when I'm going on a trip. But anyway, that's just the way it works.
So we got a question down here I want to address real quick. Chris
Sure.
A asked, do you have any policies where a business owner can borrow the premiums for 5 to 10 years to fund the policy? You're talking about premium financing. Yes, we absolutely do that. It's not our core. We don't go out teaching that because obviously if you do a premium financing policy, you're not going to have liquidity because the bank won't let you. We'll call it a first lien position. It's a collateral assignment position. So the bank's funding your premiums. You might have to put a little in because usually the bank won't do 100%. So you're putting a little in, the bank's doing the majority of it. It's a loan that is expired by the cash value. So the cash value buildup pays the loan off over the period of time or the term of the loan. Banks do this all the time. We have lots of banks that do premium financing, and we certainly can design that strategy. Just be aware that what you're giving up is the liquidity in those years. You're using the bank's money to fund it. But after that, you know what you got? You got a hell of a policy with lots of cash value, lots of compounding growth, and a really great death benefit. And usually that premium financing has to start with a need for the death benefit for business uses like key man, deferred comp, some other use case. Maybe you're just protecting a loan that was given, on a purchase or an acquisition. So all sorts of things. But yes, just simple answer is we certainly can do that. It's just we just don't talk about that all that often because it's just a small niche of people that want that. And I think most people doing premium financing are doing it wrong. And they're using IULs and they're going to run into trouble. They really are. Let's see. Does one have to have a policy to set up a call with us? No, not at all. Most of the people that we're talking to don't have policies. But if you have policies, all the better. Then we can build them into your model and show you what it would look like with your existing policies and your new one that we're structuring for you. I just want to hit on a couple other things.
Okay.
One of the things that we face objections to a lot is people will say to me, and Craig, pull up just the numbers again, because it'll be easier if I got the numbers in front of me. People will say to us all the time is, why would I ever pay to use my own money? Like, that's what they say. Because obviously, like what we're talking about is you're putting money into the whole life and then you're borrowing money from the insurance company using your cash value as collateral. And you're technically effectively paying an interest rate on the money that you borrow from the insurance company. So let's just debunk that. Is that a problem? Go back. Or are you actually going to show it, Craig?
Yeah, we can show it. How much you want to borrow?
Craig is an overachiever. I was just going to kind of just show you the simple things. Craig's actually going to give you the actual absolute mathematics. So when people say this to us and they're just like, oh, why would I ever pay to use my own money? I always tell them you already are paying to use your own money because you're always paying interest on your money. And that comes in two forms. This is R. Nelson Nash. You're either giving up interest you could earn on the money that you had, or you're paying someone else's bank interest. And that is the absolute truth. So when someone says that, I say, okay, so your strategy would be you save up the money in the bank account. When you want to buy something, you take the money out of the bank account and you buy it. Great. Okay. Now you didn't have to pay interest to use your money, but you're still paying interest. Let's just say you found yourself a high yield savings account that paid 3%. When you took that money out to buy the car, indeed, you are paying 3%. Because you're not earning 3% on the money you took out of the bank. So you're still paying interest. You're just missing the point. It's the opportunity cost that you're missing, which is interest that could have been earned. And then most people are still financing with the bank, being like, oh, I'm borrowing from the bank. Okay, that's money you're giving away too. But Craig, show them here how this is such an easy thing for us to debunk for someone when they say, I don't want to pay interest on my own money. Great, let me show you the mathematics on how you're not.
Yeah, so the first step is really understanding how the policy loans work. Because if, let's say, for example, we take a $20,000 loan from our policies, we're going to buy a car, go do something with it, buy some equipment for our business. And let's say the policy loan interest rate's 5, whether it's 6 or 7, it doesn't matter. So let's say it's 5 for now. What we're going to do is structure payments back to our own system. Let's say we're going to pay this over 5 years. That means we need to pay $377.42 in loan repayments back to our policy to pay that policy back in full. Now, the question is, if we do this, are we really paying 5%? This is a simple interest loan. So what's happening is every time we make a loan repayment, we're reducing our principal amount by 100% of that payment, and then interest gets calculated. So the first amazing number is over that 60 months, we're not paying 5%. Our effective interest rate was actually 2.47. Now there's another force going on here. Yes, we paid 2.47 to use that money, but weren't we also compounding while that was being used? And this is what Chris is talking about is there's a compounding force in that river. There's maybe a little diversion we have when we're paying back some of that loan cost. So what I'm going to do is just show you if I use a policy and let's just say we can go down to the bank and we can borrow that $20,000 at 7%. That's maybe what we could get for a business loan. Well, we're now going to, for the next 5 years, we're going to pay $450 back to our system. Well, what do you think is going to happen if we're paying $450 a month back to a loan that can only hold 300 and whatever it was, 37? Are we not going to overpay that loan?
Yep.
Isn't that money that otherwise would have gone to the bank?
100% of it would have.
Wouldn't it be great if we could just put that into our policy as well as premium and have that compound for the rest of our life?
Sure, it's free money.
So what we're looking at is traditional financing of that $20,000. $23,761 is gone from your economy forever. That's just money that would have gone away from you. You failed to capture that in the water wheel, as Chris had in his picture. I know there's a lot of numbers here, but I'm just going to point out a couple quick things. You put in $225,000 of premium of savings into the policy during that time. It grew to 229. So we had compounding inside the policy. We had some interest cost. So when we look at what we put in versus what we took out, we're looking for the gain. In the very first cycle of using our policy, we still got $1.01 back for every dollar of financing that we put, we use that 20,000. So let me just put it a different way. We borrowed $20,000 from our system and we got not only $20,000 back, but we got more than $20,000 back. We got $1.01 for every
And the
dollar.
important thing here to realize is in the traditional way that most people go, they gave up $23,761. Let's not forget that. That's money that was gone. Where in this case, you got you got $1.01 back for every dollar that you finance through your own system. And this is just in the beginning. I always ask people, I always say, listen, okay, let's just do a simple mathematics thing. If you had a bank that paid you 6% on your money, okay, you deposit money and they pay you 6%. But that bank has a provision that allowed you to borrow money from that bank, no questions, at a rate of 5%. Okay, they're paying you 6%, and you can borrow from the bank, no questions, at 5%. Every single person you will ever talk to would take the loan at 5% and make the 1%, in 6%. They would keep the money in the bank and borrow from the bank at the lower rate. That just makes logical sense. That's exactly what you're doing here. But it took you changing where the money went first, because no bank is going to do that. The bank's going to flip that. Best case, they're going to pay you 4%, charge you 6%. They're not going to do it the other way. Banks would go out of business. But insurance companies don't operate like that. See, insurance companies have hundreds of billions of dollars in some cases sitting in their general account that needs to go to work. The lowest risk place they can put that money to work is to lend it back to the policyholders, because they got 100% collateral on that money. Plus, they had to have the money set aside to pay the death benefit when you die, which they know you're going to die. So they're just going to let you use some of the death benefit while you're living. It is the most amazing concept. When you wrap your head around how and why it works that way, it's a win-win for the insurance company and a win-win for you. But banks can't do this because banks don't have their own money. Banks use our money. Banks use the Fed's money. Insurance companies, better damn well believe it, they have their own money. And it is theirs because it is required to be in reserves in the general account to pay out future claims of death benefits. They have to have the money. Therefore, they subscribe to the river as well, and they have to have that money working for them. No better way than send that money back to you in the form of a loan and you pay them interest on money at zero risk. They don't care that you're earning 6%. That's not coming out of the insurance company. That's just their general account earning, and they're sharing it with you because they're mutually owned. Like, it is single-handedly, when people understand that, it is seriously one of the most miraculous things and most miraculous aha moments you will ever have. You're like, oh my gosh, that makes all the sense in the world. And the best part is it's guaranteed. Like, it's not like an IUL where, well, if you get your hypothetical rate of return because the participation rate in the S&P 500 goes good, and option contracts that the insurance company is buying to basically provide that or give you that return all stay the same and don't go up in cost. Oh, and our costs stay the same on the cost of insurance, which goes up every single year. Well, then maybe this is what you'll have. Is that the game you want to play, folks? Because if it is, I don't know why you were here for an hour and a half. Just go buy an IUL. We'll hear from you in 5 years, 10 years, maybe less, saying, I should have, could have, and would have done this with you had I known. Well, now you know. You just saw it. So that's the thing. So, folks, we keep putting it up there. If you want to book a call with one of our money mentors, please book a call. Remember earlier, you all committed to taking action today. Now, I'm not saying this is going to be for all of you, but if your action is you want to see what this can do for you, if you want to see what your situation is, book the call. Click the link and book the call. The recordings are going to be up Saturday on my YouTube channel, which is at the Chris Naugle. Now, in the sake of time, because I know we're over, I want to read this because I think this is super powerful. Today wasn't just about life insurance. I hope you realize that. It wasn't about charts and spreadsheets. Today was about money flow. It was about ownership and control of your money and doing what others, so many others, are unwilling to do. Because here's the truth, and this I love. This is the greatest moment in your lifetime to get ahead financially. No ifs, no ands, and no buts about it. You can see this every day. Just look around. Not because the world is easy. It is not the best time because the world's easy. It's because because most people, the best of the best out there for the most part, have stopped trying. They've given up. The system has taken over and they're just going along and conforming with it. You are not. That is why this is the single greatest time in history. Just do just a little bit more. You don't need to outrun the bear, okay? You don't. You just need to walk faster than everybody else that's running away, which isn't very fast. You literally can crawl and you're going to win the game. But if you're running away from it, if you're hiding from it, if you're conforming to what everybody else is telling you, you are losing ground and it will never come back. Time is a very vicious thing. And every single person on this webinar donated your time. You gave your time. You didn't donate it. You freely gave your time. And I commend you for that. We got 88 people out of a little over 100 today. A little light showing, but nonetheless, all of you proved you can take action because you made it to the end. This is the end. There is nothing else. So I commend you for that because that is a hard thing. And that's how I got ahead. I started going off the beaten path. I started seeking answers because I wasn't getting them in the traditional systems. And I was a financial advisor. I was a financial advisor in debt. I was a financial advisor struggling. I bet you most financial advisors out there, they won't tell you, but ask them to show you. I bet you they're in debt too. And then you can go back to them and be like, well, why didn't you just pay your debts off instead of putting all this money in the market and risking it? Well, I don't know. I make more in the market until you don't. Until you don't. And that day is coming soon for many of them. There's going to be a big awakening in the financial industry with all these gurus and financial advisors who think there's no downside to the markets. Watch closely, folks. There is. But for all of us, for all of you, there's no downside. It's super quiet and calm in here. And I commend you for making it to the end. With that being said, Craig, Stephen, thank you so very much, folks. We put the link up right over there. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's my ask, my second ask. If you're not going to commit to booking a call, please go to my YouTube channel at the Chris Naugle. Subscribe, click that little bell, and then you can join us this afternoon at the Ask Me Anything Happy Hour, where we have a ton of fun and just answer people's questions. All right. With that being said, that's a wrap for this wealth webinar. We'll see you the next time.